actually have a very unique session. So I started myQuest over a decade ago, and we've been working with so many companies until today. But the vast majority of our partners and customers are training companies. Usually, these are companies anywhere between 1 to like 20 people, and usually it's more like 1 or 2 people. That what they do is they have a very unique process. They have a very unique know-how on how to accomplish a certain skill or how to help people to do something. And many times what we have seen is that many times people build extraordinary content, but they fail and struggle to sell it. Because it's a different skill set, building content and coaching people and engaging people to accomplish a certain goal, to actually sell it and go to organization and build the right strategy. And the reason why I'm really excited about this session today is particularly for us, like I'll be fully transparent with you, many years we felt that we can do better also with sales. And in the last year, through one of our resellers, we found James, and James is going to be the one who's going to present today in this webinar. And we've been working with James for the last 5 months. And what's really extraordinary about James is that he's been selling content for the last 30 years. Actually, through companies he's been working with, he sold content that reached more than 100 million people. And he also helped us to increase our sales this year by 70%. And one of the things that I really wanted to accomplish is to see how we can take James' knowledge and know-how and really bring it to our customers and our partners. Because eventually when you guys succeed, we succeed, and we want all to succeed together. So at the beginning, I referred James to some of our customers, and he started working with them one-on-one, and he really helped some of our customers to scale their business. But I wanted to create something more scalable. So this is why we're doing this webinar today, because I think it's a great opportunity for any small business, small training company who wants to take their training to the next place. What we're going to cover today in this webinar is actually, the strategy. How do you build the right strategy for your business? And how do you make sure you set you up for success? So I think it's going to be very interesting, and I'm very excited about this because I felt from a personal experience how it actually impact our business. So I'm sure it can impact many of your business as well. So James, without further ado, good to have you here. Maybe you want to say a few words to introduce yourself as well.
Sure. Thanks, Adon. I definitely appreciate the kind introduction. And as you mentioned, I've been selling online training since 1999. And then prior to that, instructor-led training, because prior to that, there wasn't a lot of online training. I've been involved with launching hundreds of courses as a sales, marketing, and customer success leader for training organizations. But a few years ago, I started Inertia Solutions to help others develop their own recipe for long-term sales success. So we're going to talk today about getting started with sales strategic planning. And obviously, the webinar is hosted by myQuest. I've had a great experience with this platform, and I'm just really pleased that Adon asked me to see if we could help out his customer base and the folks that follow myQuest. So what I'd like everybody to do, if you don't mind, before we get started, and as we roll into the next slide, type in the chat, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to selling your training or coaching product? Is it finding the right audience, getting them to respond, or maybe closing the deal, or maybe it's something else? just go ahead and type them in the chat. And if there's a question about that, we'll bring it up later. I know Billy's taking a look. But we'll carry on while we're doing that. Don't forget to do it though. Put in the work. That's the important thing here. Okay, so want to talk about the fact that this webinar is not exhaustive. It does cover the key elements of creating a strategic sales plan, which is something that many organizations miss. But there's actually more to this process that we can talk about in the time that we've got allotted. So what I wanted to do is really cover the high points to get you started. And then at the end, obviously, there's going to be a pitch, right? We've created a quest that is really a workshop that can help you create your own strategic sales plan. And throughout the entire process, me and my associates at my company will be providing you with direct feedback along the way so that we can coordinate that. And the output will be a playbook.
James, looking at what everyone wrote, it's actually very interesting. I see some people saying that describing what they do and how it solves the pain for their customer is a common pain. Another common pain that I'm seeing here is actually how to close the deal or how to find the right target audience. But lots of different, it's interesting. It's also interesting to see how each one has different challenges, I would say.
Yeah, but there's some themes, and the good news is the ones that I've seen pop up so far, we're going to address most of those along the way. So that's actually really exciting. So background, there's this concept where when people build training and coaching programs, they will very often have some really early success, right? But after that early success, you can see the chart on the screen, you sell a few right off the bat, and then it just flatlines. And I actually call this the worked once fallacy. If it worked once, it's got to work again. And there could be a lot of things. One is that early enthusiasm. You're really excited. You can sell almost anything to anybody once you've created your program. It's like best thing ever. It could be that you just maybe stumbled on the right prospect. There's a lot of different things around this. But what happens is the worked once fallacy says that the thing that worked once becomes the process. And then we can't figure out why it was that we didn't do so well long term. So has anybody experienced this? And write that in the chat. If you experience that, maybe you sold a few seats right away. Yeah, there's a yes right off the bat. Right off the bat, we're seeing that's really something that happens very often, especially in the training business, because a lot of times trainers were professional coaches and that or consultants, and they've had a success in their consulting business. So those first few customers are also their consulting clients. So you've got a captive audience and those things happen. So it becomes a process, but after you run out of that little core, it sort of goes away. So that's why planning is so important, to create processes that support your company vision and really get you to that next level. So foundationally, where do you start? Some of this is going to be repeat, but don't tune out, because it's extremely important that where we're differentiating, a lot of this sounds like marketing information, but what's all going to tie back into your sales plan at the end. So where we're going to start is first with the company vision. Now, many of you have already done a brand study, and that actually puts you ahead of the curve. But people are like, well, James, yeah, I've done a brand study. That's a marketing thing. But the cornerstone of any great business strategy, not just sales strategy, lies in knowing what you want your company to become. So the vision, for the purpose of sales planning, is the top line qualitative business result for your company, and is the litmus test for every decision that you make. The way I always characterize it is the vision is you when you are not in the room. Does that resonate? The vision is you when you're not in the room. So what would the vision do is the question. If the answer is this doesn't support the vision, we don't make that decision ever. And so becoming vision driven is really important because you always have that litmus test, and you're not what they call it, chasing waterfalls, right? Not chasing rainbows. It's the vision is important. We've got to focus on it. Um, this is such an important thing that my logo, which is right there on the screen, is actually a representation of the two paths that you can get to a vision, either the steep, challenging way, or the way that you're going to need a guide, but it's a little less steep. And that's what my company logo is. That's how important vision is in my version of sales planning. So if you have a vision and you don't mind sharing it, put it in the chat. The next thing is something I call leadership brand. And this is the way at the baseline that we communicate. It's a foundational element that, along with vision, sets the tone for the way that we authentically communicate with our team, our prospects, our customers, and the world. I will say this: all of my success in sales has been as a direct result of adhering to my leadership brand. And I'm approaching $1 billion in lifetime sales that I've been associated with. All of my success in sales has been a direct result of adhering to my leadership brand. My failures, on the other hand, are when I didn't. It's as simple as that. To be clear, on the tie into sales planning, when we outline our presentations and write sales messaging, all of our communications have to meet the leadership brand always, 100% of the time. And you can see my leadership brand is there on the screen. That this is just mine: courage and candor with kindness, curiosity without judgment, and investment in others. And those are the three elements that have it. Yes, and we'll address the values part of it in a second. There's a question that says, is leadership brand similar to values? Yes, it is similar. It's not the same though. It's similar. I'll tell you about that in a second. But those three elements are what that's how I live my life. That's how I communicate with every single human being to the best of my ability. So one of the things, the difference between leadership brand and corporate values, leadership brand is accurate today. This is how we behave today. Whereas values are very often aspirational, something that you want to get to. We want to, it goes back to more like on the mission side. Learning and sharing is a great value, for example. We want to get to that. Leadership brand is a communication methodology, not just what you value. Okay. Oh, I love these. Everybody should be reading the chat as I'm chatting too, because you guys are making the webinar. Meredith, I love that. Help 1 million leaders, because you've made vision, which is very often qualitative. You made it quantitative, which is like a goal. And that's something we're going to talk about in a few minutes too. That is incredible. That's a really, really good one. I love words like inspire and empower. That's really good stuff. One of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing with vision, to go back to the last slide, is making sure that it is what you will become as an organization, and you'll know it when you got there, right? So it can be qualitative or quantitative, but you'll know it when you got there. And that becomes the litmus test for everything that you do. Okay, the next one, your product. Now, with training, coaching, I'm not talking about production value. It can't be terrible, right? You can't have terrible production value. What I'm talking about is outcomes. The primary difference between selling software that's not training and software that is training, that's largely what we're talking about, is online training, which acts like software. The primary difference is that with software, you're selling process, right? You're selling a process. But with training, you're selling an outcome. So the outcome has to be excellent. So if your product is great and you've got a great vision and you've got a leadership brand, the way that you're communicating, those are the foundational elements. And again, there's a lot more. You could put in your values, you could put in your mission statement. All these things can go around this. But if you've got these three elements, we can at least get started and get into the next phase, which is, what's your market? So from a strategic planning perspective, well, we'll just put this up here. What happens is that unless you've got unlimited resources, doing a broad-based marketing campaign is simply too expensive for most training and coaching organizations to swallow. And the cost per lead doesn't necessarily equate back to the value per customer, right? It's a really, really challenging thing. SEO is slow and it's also really competitive. Search engine optimization, which is SEO for some of those that you don't know. Luis, can I go back to the previous slide? Which one? Sorry.
The one where you were just outlining the three elements, and I just started jotting it, not quite caught it.
Oh, okay. So the three elements are vision, leadership, brand, and product. Okay. And here's the trouble. We had that early success, right? We sold a few seats. We had that early success. And then so we go, okay. We now can tap into, how many of you have heard this? The $3.2 billion market. Does that resonate with anybody? It's always that number for some reason. It's a $3.2 billion market. But the fact is there's no such thing as build it and they will come, right? That isn't reality. That's not how things work. When we're a small organization trying to do broad-based marketing campaigns and broad-based sales outreach, we can get lost really quickly. There's actually something, I think I talk about this later, that's happening right now called the Great Ignore. Have you heard this term? The Great Ignore is all those things in your email inbox that you don't pay attention to because there's just so darn many of them. And what we're endeavoring to do is not become one of those, right? Let me tell you a quick story about how this worked for me. A long time ago, when most of us were early in our careers, we'll call it 2002 because that's the year it was. I was sitting in the back of a friend's boat, and I was selling at the time. My company sold online safety training, and he said to me, "Oh, online safety training. You should sell online mine safety training through this organization called MSHA, which is like OSHA but with an M." I had no idea what he was talking about. I didn't even know what it was, but he told me that there was 1 million people in the United States that have to take this training every year. And I'm like, oh, 1 million people. Oh, I'm going to go get them. I'm going to run down there and I'm going to get that million, right? Well, what happened was that I didn't sell hardly anything. We went out, we got a grant to build the product. We spent a couple $100,000 building the product out. And we took it to market and nobody bought it. And we were plugging away and trying it because we spent all this money on building the product out, selling. Nobody was buying. Well, what turned out was that there was a requirement for a certified instructor for half of this market. So for 500,000 people, there was a certified instructor requirement. Well, once we figured that out, we're like, okay, let's go focus on the other half of the market. Well, still didn't get any traction, but we were at a trade show one day. Person walked up to the booth and she said, contractors to this industry, to the mining industry, really need this product. And there are about 100,000 people that are contractors to the mining industry. So even though we built for the $3.2 billion market, she was saying that what we should do is go after this small subset, this small niche within the market within the market within the market. And we did that. And the 12 months following that, in 2002 to 2003, we sold $560,000 worth of that product at $75 a seat. In today's dollars, that's about $900,000. We sold basically zero going after the broad market, that $3.2 billion pie in the sky, basically zero. So what we need to do is niche down. Who is it that has the problem that you know that you solve? They know they have the problem. Who has already envisioned the future state? What ties them all together? What ties them to you as a human being? They're most relatable. And where do they congregate? How could we find them? Fair enough. Okay, so this is the first step to finding your market. Next thing is buyer persona. So once you've decided the subset of the market, it could be dog walkers, it could be professional violinists, it could be leaders in industry that have a specific situation, whatever your smallest common denominator is. And by the way, I like this to be less than 50,000 people total, right? Smaller is better to start. You can always expand your market. Contracting it in the beginning will save you so much time and money with people that are going to resonate with what you do. So you've got to define who these people are. If you've done a marketing study, you might have already done a buyer persona. But from a sales perspective, we need to make sure that we've got someone who resonates with our leadership brand, who resonates with our product, and is a part of this small group. So give them a name, make it into a standard format. You're going to use this in all of your sales and marketing material moving forward. Many of you have done a brand study and then it sat on the shelf, right? That happens, right? You go through the big thing, they give you a logo, they give you your mission, your vision, your values, your buyer personas, your ideal customer profile, all these things, your onlyness statement, and nothing happens. Well, we're going to give you a framework to make sure that you can actually use these things to make sales. So first thing, let's meet Sarah. This is one of my buyer personas. Sarah is a independent sales coach. Interesting fact, many of my customers are sales coaches. What is it that I do for a living? I'm a sales coach. It's different when you're out there selling sales training versus teaching people how to sell training. And so there's a big discrepancy there. But this is the sort of format. This is the format that I use, and you guys will get this deck later. So you'll get a recording of this, so you can go back and look at it. But what I always do is I always tie it back to the challenges that the buyer faces, the goals, and why they align with the organization. And what we do here is all of our messaging, all of our sales processes, and everything else centers around these 2, 3, or 4 buyer personas. And Sarah is going to be a recurring theme for the rest of the webinar. Question: Who's got buyer personas? And if you named them, type the names of your buyer personas in the chat if you've named them. When the first two I ever had were Safety Sam and HR Amy back in the day. I've started naming them like real people now, but if you've got buyer personas, put their name in the chat. By the way, shameless plug here. One of the processes that we're going to take you through is how to create buyer personas authentically for your brand based on your vision, your leadership brand, your product, and your niche. Melissa, mom, I love it. Okay, lead generation. Next part of the strategic sales plan is where are you going to get your leads? It's not everybody, right? We just talked about niching down, niching down, niching down. So the answers to the questions on the screen will get you to what your lead sources are. The more targeted you can be, the better. That number 1, who does Sarah know that has worked with you previously, is the most powerful thing. But maybe you don't have any customers for your product yet. That's okay. You can go down to the next stage. Where does she get her information? Does she respond to advertising? Does she have a bunch of social media accounts that she's very active on? Does she use internet search? Where does she get her information? What news sources does she use? So that we can start thinking about how to tap into those either on an organic basis or on a paid basis if you've got budget to do that. One of the most important things is, what does Sarah buy? So you guys, all 38 of you, are in my buyer persona. Let's follow this, right? You guys are all part of my buyer persona. How did I find you? Anybody want to tell me how I found you? myQuest. Well, that's because your customers or prospects of myQuest. So who can you partner with whose customers are the same as your customers, and you can add a complementary layer to what they're doing? Okay. So that's referral networks, partnerships. I like to set up what I call a permanent referral network. And again, that's something that we talk about in the Quest. Then also, you want to know, how does Sarah prefer to communicate? How does your buyer persona, how does she prefer to communicate? Does she like phone calls? Does she like email? Does she like in person? If you're sending text messages, just make sure they're not cold. It's against the law in the United States to send cold text messages. But sometimes people prefer to communicate that way. So in some other way, establish communication and then send text. Maybe it's, I've got some buyers that prefer LinkedIn messaging. Whatever their preference is what those are communication tools that you should use. Sounds obvious, right? Okay, now we understand we've got this pool of leads, and again, very high level overview of it. We've got this pool of leads that we're going to pull from, but now we need to determine how we're going to speak to them using our leadership brand and our vision as a litmus test. In sales, everything starts with goals. Why do you start with the end? Well, when you're selling something, you've got to start with the end result in mind. So yes, process starts with a KPI in sales. Start with your goal. Isn't it goal and outcome? Yeah, it is. Always better to start with the end in mind. So personally, for my company, I set monthly and semi-annual or twice a year goals. Many companies do quarterly goals and annual goals. I prefer to keep my goals as close to the top line as possible, meaning there's two really good top line goals. One is top line revenue. How many dollars did you bring in? And the other one is, how many people did you serve? How many people bought? And then obviously there's an average transaction value, and you can relate that back. One of the things that I've seen is a giant mistake is creating goals that are too far down in your process. Those can be, if you use Google's OKR platform, objectives and key results. If you go down, those can be key results for your objectives. And if you don't know, you can talk to me offline about what OKRs are. You can get a little bit more granular. You're talking about planning, but your goals should be top line, because if you say something like, well, I want to have 152 first meetings for customers. Well, if you have 152 first meetings, but your top line goal was $100,000 in sales, but you only get to $75,000 in sales, even though you met that goal, it was meaningless. It didn't mean anything. So that you want to make sure that success is success. And again, we're talking about the top line of the company. If you have employees, you could certainly have an employee whose KPI is 115 first meetings. That's no problem, because that's what they get paid on. But if from the company perspective, as close to the top line as possible, you could break it down by type of revenue if you've got renewal business and things like that. Now, personally, oh, thank you for the OKRs example. Everybody should click that. OKRs are great. I use SMART goals. SMART with an H at the end. So for those of you that haven't used that platform, somebody could probably put a link up to that too on SMART goals. SMART is an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time activated. So that means that it's got to be quantifiable, right? It's got to be quantifiable, and it's got to be specific. It can't be, oh, we want to do around 50 sales, right? No, it's got to be, we're going to do 50 sales, or we're going to do $500,000 in revenue, or whatever the number is. It's got to be measurable and specific in that way. You've got to be able to do it. It can't be impossible. It's got to be relevant, meaning it's got to tie directly back to your vision. And it has to be time activated. Time activated means it has to have a deadline. And then the H. Okay, this is all James. I'm going to trademark this. H is hard. It has to be hard. It has to be hard enough to get you out of bed and working before your Wheaties in the morning. Hard. Motivatingly challenging. But again, remember, it's got to be achievable. So both achievable and hard. So in the chat, what framework do you use for your goals? And how often do you revisit them? Because you ever been in a situation where you have an annual goal and you find out that in Q3, there's either no possible way that you're going to meet it, or you've already blown it out of the water? How valuable is that goal at that time? Right? So let us know in the chat. What framework do you use to establish your goals, and how often do you revisit them? Nobody's ponying up for this one. Okay. It's okay. Don't worry. Then we talk about process. So sales process is something that is overthought more than just about anything in my experience in sales. Let me give you an example. I worked with an organization and we bought another company. And as a result of that, I took over their sales and marketing organization and evaluated their sales process. And their sales process that was documented in their, yeah, thanks, Kristen. It was documented in their CRM. And it had 6 major steps, and each of those steps had like an A, B, and a C, okay, within the sales process. Well, when I did the evaluation, I noticed that there were 0 deals in stages 3, 4, or 5. None at all. Never happened. But stage 6, 6A, was closed won. And there was a bunch of deals that they actually won some business. So I went back and looked at stage 2A. This is just dumb, right? It just sounds dumb when I'm talking about it. I went back and looked at stage 2A. And stage 2A was what they called access to power, meaning that the sales rep had actually spoken with the ultimate decision maker. Well, they didn't think that in that particular industry, in the training business, right? Selling training, if you're selling corporate training, you very often never speak with the CFO or the CEO. Very often you never speak with that person. So they were skipping from step 2A to closed won or closed lost, and they missed all that data in between because they didn't know what their own process was. Now, why did they not know what their own process was? Well, because of the second bullet here. It has to align with the way that your customers buy. Your sales process has to align with the way that your customers buy. And each stage, very simply, is what do we know? What do we have to find out? What do we have to work out? What do we know? What do we have to work out? So, for example, when we're prospecting, what do we know? We have a name. What do we need to work out? Do we want to work with this organization, or do we think we want to work with this organization? Yes? Let's move on. Primary qualification. We have someone who we think we want to work with. Do we really want to work with them? Like, what questions do we need to ask to ensure that we really want to take the next step with this customer? Discovery. We really want to work with them, but we need to know who they are, what their business problems are, what the implications of those business problems are, what their future state looks like, what their key results are, what KPIs are most important to them, what keeps them up at night, who's involved in the buying process, all of this stuff, right? That's their discovery process. Secondary qualification is all about, hey, do they have the money to pay for this? Right? Are they able to move forward? And then we talk about agreement stages, and there's different things there. And everything has to be documented in CRM. So here's the question. Have you written, and by the way, this isn't what it looks like. This was this chart here. This is a really, really basic flow chart that is really generic. Every organization has a slightly different take on this based on the customer's buying journey, even if it's an individual buyer, right? If it's somebody, even if it's a transactional sale, which I think this one is kind of a transactional sale. It's like a one-call close situation that's on there. But even if it's a single person buying a single course, there's still a process, and it still needs to be documented in CRM, because if you can't measure it, you can't grow it. So the question for the chat is, have you written a formal sales process? You already have one. And if you haven't, that's okay, because in my experience, it's about made up number 80% of small training and coaching companies don't have a formal sales process. Now, measurement. Once you've got your process in place, it's really important to have the tools in place to measure what's happening. Even if it's just on the front end from like a marketing automation standpoint, how many leads do we have and how many of those are converting based on what your key performance indicators are that you need to run your business. And usually what I look at are conversion metrics. How many of this is really simple, right? How many of this became that? In about 2015 or 2016, I was with an organization that was being purchased by a private equity firm. And they, at that point, they came back to us and they said, hey, look, we're really interested and we love your growth rate. We were growing at, the independent study showed that my sales team was growing at a rate of 3 to 4 times the industry average in that particular industry that we're in, and twice as fast as our next closest competitor. And they're like, well, that's great, but why? Why is that? So what I had to do at that point, that's actually where the webinar and then ultimately the quest came from, is that I had to go back and reverse engineer the process and the key performance indicators along the way to be able to prove why the growth model was working. And what it turned out is all the really important things were conversion metrics, meaning how many of this became that, how many leads became prospects, how many prospects moved through into the qualification system, how many of those that were qualified went to closed won, and how many went to closed lost. And then at the very beginning, how much did each lead cost me? And then based on how much each lead cost me, how much revenue can I expect for each lead? And was one number bigger than the other? And sure enough, it was. And they bought us for $360 million. Which, by the way, the company was only doing just under $40 million in revenue at the time. But based on the growth model of that conversion metric, they knew that it was sort of infinitely scalable. How do you measure it? Well, don't try to do it yourself. Like, yes, have an Excel spreadsheet to start, but having a CRM, even like the free version of HubSpot, is critical. Documenting your sales stages and all of your conversions in CRM is incredibly important. That's the one tool that you can't live without, period. But there are other things too that you could look at, and this is something that we can talk about further. But we can talk about sales enablement tools. We can talk about sales coaching tools. We can talk about marketing automation. We can talk about calendaring tools like Calendly. What we're on right now, Zoom, all these things, really important. So once you've got the model in place, you can start putting data into it, and you can very quickly see what you need to do more of to A, reach your goals, and B, get to your vision. See how it all ties back in? And that's the critical thing here. Now, we're skipping a lot of stuff, right? We're skipping messaging. We're skipping outreach. We're skipping sales training. What do you say in these situations? Simply based on the amount of time that we have to spend in the webinar. But what we do is we roll up all this information into a model, and then we come out with, okay, when you are able to speak with someone, here are the questions that you ask, here's what you're trying to work out, and here's the alignment that you're trying to make. Very, very simple. It's not salesmanship, it's alignment. Trying to find alignment, figure out how you can point your rocket launcher in the right direction, right? How to put your slingshot in the right direction. Finding alignment. So what this becomes is a filtering process. Rather than trying to sell everything to everybody, we're trying to determine whether or not this person is qualified to buy based on the measurement that we have in place, that we know that these are the people that are most likely to convert. And if they are qualified to buy, what does that process look like that's going to take them through that journey? And we do all of write all the questions. We have all the put all the measurements in place, all those things along the way. Process is everything. Yeah, well, I would say people are everything. But if you don't have good processes, your people will flounder. So next slide. I'd actually, Don talked about this a little bit, but one of the things that we've done together at myQuest is realign the sales process with the buyer's journey. And Don, I want to open it up to you and just talk about what your experience was either going through that process or whatever you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, so first of all, before we talk about our experience, I think, what you shared here from one end, it might be basic, but I think that many organizations are not doing it. And also when people are doing it, sometimes they don't have feedback or they're not sure how to do it. So I think it's really important, to really understand what's your market. I can tell you that, for example, this year, one of the strategic decisions that we took in myQuest is I think training companies were always our main vertical, but we also sell to organization and, we have other verticals, but we really decided to put all of our focus on training companies. And, this is very aligned with what you mentioned before on, try to really have smaller niches as possible and really try to understand your niche. And we have a solution which is really incredible for training companies because of many of the features that we've developed. And as we've been working in the last few months together, we also added many new, I would say, it doesn't even have to be features in the product, but benefits for training companies. For example, right now when we sign a customer, we build in the silver and the gold package, we build the first training for them because we have seen that many people struggle building their first program. And now we're actually looking for a solution for video production for people. And also we added this kind of sales support as part of our new packages. Let's see how we can support training companies to sell their content. Now, I think from our perspective, when we really focus on specific niche, suddenly we could find different values and different offering for that specific niche that might not be relevant for organization with like 1,000 employees who wants to use myQuest as their LMS. But it's very relevant, right? For example, sales support. This is one of the things that we provide right now. It's not relevant for organization who wants myQuest as an LMS, but as a trainer, it's really, really helpful. So I think this is like following your process. If I'm taking one thing that we have done this year and really impacted the business was focusing on a niche and really try to think what are the barriers for this niche and what more can we provide beyond the technology. Besides this, I can tell you that James is working with our sales team. This is less on, I think this is going to be the next quest that you want to build with the platform, but he's been working very closely with our sales team on how to provide more value for prospects and and I think what you've been teaching them very aligned with your leadership values, right? Like to be very bold but kind to customers, to really provide value to people, to see what we can do for people. So this is also something that we were really able to. We've been measuring everything even before James started working with us, but we'll start seeing the shift on the conversion in each aspect of the sales cycle. And we also, one thing that we have done based on what you just showed today is actually change the way we measure our pipeline. So usually in our CRM, usually we would do the pipeline which was based more on our process, like first meeting, second meeting, decision maker got into the call, and then agreement sent and deal closed. And one of the things that we've done, we restructured the pipeline based on what the customer is actually need and looking for. So for example, the way we structure the pipeline right now is the first stage, the customer is part of our niche target audience. And the second phase is the customer said that the solution can help them. Like the customer said that, not us, the prospect. It's not something that we think, it's something that the customer said. And then the next phase is finance qualified. We went over the pricing and the customer said that the pricing is good for them. And then verbal approval, and then deal close. So we really shift the entire, I think, focus from us trying to guess what's happening in the customer world, really to look at the customer world and build the entire pipeline based on the customer and not based on our process. So these are some of the things that we've been changing in the last 5 months.
Yeah, and I think it's gone really well. If anybody's, while we finish up this slide, if anybody has any other questions to ask Adon, feel free to put those into the chat as well. And I think that, you know, one of the things that I was sort of forced to do, because I kept getting asked the same question. Like, I pretty good at sales. I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, and you can't do something for 30 years and not be pretty good at it. And I was asked, like, why is that? Because, you know, maybe technically I'm not the greatest salesperson in the world. I'm pretty good. I read a lot of books and implement a lot of things, and I'm able to teach people how to sell. But it really comes back down to those the leadership brand. And that third bullet on the leadership brand was investment in others. And if you make all of your processes a reflection of your customer, it's magic. And people say, well, gosh, how is it that you're able to do what you do? And I said, the only thing is being really invested in the outcomes of your customers, not really invested in selling your product, really invested in the outcomes of your customers. And it's one of the reasons I love myQuest, because so many myQuest customers are people that built businesses based on what they're passionate about and what they want to help people with. It's just insane.
I want to say a +1 to this comment. I think you know, when I spoke with James for the first time, one of the things that I noticed at the beginning, he was selling me his services, right? So, and one of the things that I've noticed was how invested he was at myQuest and how he was excited about what we do and how he really wanted to make sure that we succeed and we get to our goals. And also when we start working together, he kept bringing this kind of, you know, excitement, like almost as a founder in the company, right? Like, let's make it together. We can make it. Let's like, and always try to see, you know, what else we can do to improve things. And I think this is, I'm not doing a lot of sales, but I'm doing some sales, and I was really able to improve my sales skills as well. I'm not coming from a sales background. And I think that the #1 thing that I implemented was focus less on our product and really focus on the prospect and try to understand very deeply what the prospect needs and see how can I support that person. Really come from a place to, I'm here to support you. I'm here to understand your goals, understand what you're trying to accomplish, and really see what can I do with myQuest or maybe without myQuest to really make sure that you can accomplish your goal. And when you're coming with that approach, magic happens.
Fully agree. Thank you, Adon. Roz, I'll get to your question in just 1 second, because I think it's a valid thing to talk about again. So here's the pitch. We developed a Quest in myQuest, and Billy will send over. We're giving you 40% off. The retail price is $350. We're doing it for $200. And the magic here is in the feedback. At every step, I provide feedback on where you're at in the plan. There's a template for it. We put it in a deck so that not only can you share the presentation deck of your strategic sales plan with people within your organization, but also for people like investors or outside parties that might want to know how your business operates. So you get a template for that you can brand and fill in along the way. The course or the Quest is powered by myQuest. It is self-paced, but I would recommend that the very first thing that you do is allocate time on your calendar, because there is work involved, for sure. And if you're willing to do the work, you're going to get that one-on-one coaching and feedback. And again, for the people that are here today, as well as current myQuest customers, it's a little over 40% off. How much time will it complete the course to take the course? Well, the course itself, if you just went through the information, would take probably about an hour. However, you're actually doing, it's a workshop. So you're actually going in and writing your vision. You're discovering your sales process based on your buyer's journey. There's a section on getting, if you can, getting feedback from people that have purchased from you in the past, so that we can include that within your buyer personas and what resonated with them and your value drivers, things like that. Yes, it is for current myQuest customers like you, absolutely. The idea here is that if you've got a great product and you've got a great vision, and we can work together on leadership brand, that anybody who's in that boat that doesn't have a formal strategic sales plan can use this to get started. This is the strategic part. The next Quest, and I'm building it out right now, is on the tactical part. But the tactics don't matter unless you have the strategy. Somebody said something about if you're doing something and you're not doing it as a process, that it's not something. That's a great quote. So yeah, anybody can take it. So just a little pitch on me, and I definitely, in the last 10 years, courses that I've launched have over 100 million completions, with many organizations, and much of that was as a sales leader. That isn't to say that I haven't launched courses that have successfully sold dozens or hundreds. The principles scale and the outcome is dynamic. I think that's really, really important to note. So certainly would encourage you to register for the workshop. That one of the, I think, really important things here is that this is not an attempt. This will help myQuest customers get to the next level. And I'm just going to be really, really honest. And the honest truth is that we want myQuest customers to thrive and renew. So this is very selfish. We want to help you succeed in your business so that myQuest succeeds as a business and my business succeeds as a business. So this is ultimate synergy. It's just here to help.
Yeah, I can, and you got, if anyone has any question, you can write it on the chat, but I can tell you that also from our perspective, I try to get, I really asked James to, again, our goal, for many years, we really struggled to help our customers sales more. We really helped them to create outstanding training programs, but sales was never our expertise. And I think this is a big hurdle for many of our customers. I know that for sure. And I've been working with James to try and get the most affordable way to really support, because he's been working with some of our customers and he takes it, retain a monthly retainer, and it's a lot of money. And we really try to create the most affordable way and scalable way to help our customers to work with James and get his feedback, one-on-one feedback, and use proven processes to really, like, at the beginning, build a strategy of the business, making sure that all the stones are in the right place and you're going in the right direction, right? Because if you're not going in the right direction, you can be the most efficient in sales, but you just won't get the results. So really, this quest is about making sure your foundation are in the right place. And even if you already have this foundation and your business is successful, it's always good to revisit this, and maybe you can improve it, and maybe you can take it to the next step. And I really wanted not just to provide, our partners and customers with content. I wanted to have James involved in this process, because I think there is a really big difference between just, okay, let me think with my target audience and then write down what I think, versus write down what I think and then get feedback from James and really have a conversation about this, and really try to make it as precise as possible. So I'll be also very transparent with you. Like, in order to get you this price, we gave it away for James. Like, we gave it away, the platform. At the beginning, he said, okay, you can do rev share if you're going to promote. I said, we don't want any rev share. What is the minimum price that you can give people so you can provide them feedback and value? Because eventually our goal is to make sure you guys succeed. And obviously I can't have James do it for free for everyone, but we try to really make it as affordable as possible to really help you guys to succeed. And I really hope it will. One of the things that we've been working together, again, as I told you, that we really want to help more of our customers sales more. So right now we started with the strategic planning. The next phase, and we're probably going to do a webinar about this once it's going to be ready, is actually about the tactical sales cycle and really how you can convert more people once you get the meeting with the right person, and really make sure you can transform a prospect into happy customers. So this is the next phase. But again, it's like you're building your own fortress, right? You need to start with the foundation, and then you can go to the next level. So right now we are covering the foundation. Make sure when you register to the program, make sure that you use our coupon code. So this is a special coupon code to our customers and also for people who show to this webinar. So it will give you quite a significant discount from the retail, which is also a discounted. Yeah, and I really hope it will be very helpful for everyone. I know we have like 1 more minute. Anyone has any last question? I see that Louis is asking about pricing. James, I know it's not the focus.
So two things. Yes, we cover pricing strategy in the program. Also, there was a question on leadership brand. The easiest way to consider leadership brand is the way in which you authentically communicate. So again, my first one, encouraging candor with kindness and with investment. That's the best way to just define that. That's up to you. Actually, it's designed for one company, so I'm happy to. You can use the workshop however you like. Not usually, there's not more than one person in the company that's responsible for sales planning, but you can certainly share the information.
Lisa, you can buy just one seat, and then you can do it together. You don't need to buy multiple seats.
You can buy one. Yeah, feel free.
Feel free to do that. So this is the end of the session. Thank you very much, everyone. I really hope it was useful. We'd love to get your feedback. Feel free in the chat, and if you have some feedback, feel free to send us email after this session. We are working to create more session for everyone. If you have other topics which are related to sales or not for sales that you would like us to provide you more value, let us know. This is really our goal as a company, to make you guys successful so you can make more people successful in their lives. And yeah, and James, thank you so much for,
Thank you, Don. Thank you for having such a great platform that allows things like this to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I somewhere in the chat also, and I think that Billy will send out the recording But there's also my my email address is in there if anybody would like to reach out directly.
Okay, so bye everyone, and I wish everyone a good day and a great week.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good one.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.
Thank you.